And so if you can go back in time, let's say you're a data analyst or you have the skills for a data analyst role, and now you get a choice to work in a big company, either as a data scientist or data engineer, given that it's the same pay, which one would you choose? Hi everyone, I'm Hari. In this video, we are gonna answer the biggest question in the data community. Whether you can be a data analyst or you have the data analytics experience or skills, a lot of data analysts that I know want to transition into data science or data engineering. In this video, we are gonna discuss which one is right for you, whether it is a data scientist or a data engineer role. For this video, we have a special guest here. So for those who don't know me, I'm Hari. I'm working as a data scientist. I did my master's in data science. And here we have Sunjana, who's working as a data engineer. Sanjana, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hey everyone, I'm Sanjana. I graduated from Columbia last year with a master's in electrical engineering. Later on, I got a job as a software engineer, basically another title for data engineer. And I've been working in the field of data engineering for over 1 year now, and I'm excited to be on this podcast. Thanks, Harry, for inviting me.
So basically, your title is software engineer or data engineer, and what's the difference?
So my role is basically data engineering. It comprises of all the activities that a data engineer would do, basically building pipelines, maintaining pipelines, and all that stuff. But since so if you look at it, there are many companies that give like a variety of titles for that data engineering position. And my company, a data engineer is somebody who would maintain the data in the long run, and not exactly somebody who builds the pipeline. So those people get the data engineer title, and whoever builds the pipeline gets a software engineer title. So I know it's a little confusing. It was a little confusing for me as well, but yeah, the role is basically data engineering and what a data engineer will do.
Yeah, we can discuss more about this. And yeah, to make it so simple, I've categorized the video into 5 factors. So we're going to answer like which is better or what's the difference between a data scientist role and a data engineer role based on these 5 factors. So the 5 factors are the first one is job role and day-to-day tasks. The second one is skills required to become a data scientist versus data engineer. And the third one is the project and real world applications that are involved in both the fields. The fourth one is the salary range. And the fifth one is which one is more easier to transition to if you already have the skills of a data analyst role. So without any delay, let's get started. And so let's start with the first one, job role and day-to-day tasks. So let's say you're gonna go to office or if you're working from home, like once as soon as you sign in to your computer, how does your day look like as a data engineer?
So typically my day, I'll tell you what a data engineer would do, like typically. So basically data engineers help data scientists get the data they need in order to build the models that would in the long run benefit the business or like benefit the company. So those are like, that is just like one part of what a data engineer would do. In my role, I work in the data and integration team. So since I work in the integration team, there are like multiple data teams that would require data from the source systems. So my role is basically to cater to all of the data needs, and like ensure that all the data comes into the data warehouse and is flowing into whatever dashboards, pipelines, and whatever models that the downstream processes require. So I just make sure that all the data goes there. So primarily on a daily basis, I would probably be working on some data, procuring some data from a source system, and normalizing it, putting it into the data model, trying to understand how I can join different tables in order to structure that new data that's coming in. Sometimes it's also about working with existing data. So if I've already built a pipeline in the past that gets data from some source system and puts it in the pipeline, it's most of the time there are many like errors or bugs or like additional requirements or additions that are needed for the data that I've already procured. So those are some of the requests that I get.
Yeah.
Hope that
So
answers.
basically your day-to-day task is to gather the data, store the data, and integrate with multiple teams and like give the data to the multiple teams, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about it in a nutshell.
So to explain data scientist role, people who are following this channel, they would have already known what a data scientist role looks like. But to give like a quick overview, so basically, a data engineer's role is before and after a data scientist role. A data scientist typically starts their work with collecting the data, which is coming from a data engineering team. If you want to get an access to a new database, you have to request the data engineering team, which they already put it together, and you work on machine learning models or creating algorithms to do your predictions, and you will produce results, right, which is going to be in a form of data, which is again going to go to the data engineering team. Also, like one more misconception and in this field is that people, whenever they apply for data roles, they just like apply for both data scientists and data engineering roles, right? I personally feel the skills that you get from data engineering and the data science is not interchangeable. Like everyone has their own like skills required. Maybe ML engineer, data engineer. I think these titles can be used interchangeably, but not data scientist versus data engineer. So yeah, in my case, after you build the machine learning models, you have to give it to a person to deploy it. Most of the cases is going to be a ML engineer. Sometimes it can also be a data engineer, because since just the title is just used interchangeably, the post processing of the machine learning pipelines could be done by either data engineer or ML engineer. And data scientist is someone who builds the machine learning models and who prepares algorithms to do the predictions. Then let's go to the second factor: skills required to become a data scientist versus data engineer. So let me ask the question in a different way. So let's say I'm a data analyst, or maybe I have the skills to be a data analyst. Like I would say SQL, Python, Tableau, maybe. Let's say I just have these three skills already. And what are the other skills that I have to learn if I have to become a data engineer?
Right. So when you say SQL, Python, and Tableau, those are just like some of the tools that that are commonly used across data science, data engineering, or any other role these days. Correct. So I would say the amount of application for this particular technology within every field is like similar. If you know the basics of SQL, if you know how to work with Python, and if you know Tableau, you can work in data engineering for sure. You don't need anything on top of it. But yes, like the amount of SQL or Python you would use for let's say data gathering, data exploration, or in general building the pipeline, and stuff like that. So that the degree to which you use those skills would vary across different roles. So I think if you know them already, it will be really easy to transition to a data engineering role, because most of the technologies are common. But additionally, on top of that, what you would need is, of course, some experience working on a cloud platform, or like using an orchestration platform like Azure Data Factory, or AWS has its own this thing, and Airflow, or like an orchestration tool where you can schedule your job or schedule your script to reach the particular storage container on a using batch or stream processing. You should be able to like put it in that container. So the script that you would obviously use like Python or SQL to write it. However, the way you orchestrate it on different cloud providers would vary. So one of the orchestration platforms I would definitely suggest to learn. But additionally, on top of that, like if you know like basic validation and like basic, data cleaning and data processing, I think that is something that a data analyst would already know, and it is mostly transferable to a data engineering position.
So basically, apart from Python, SQL, and Tableau, you are saying that they should know a cloud technology on top of it. Let's say,
Yes.
let's say I don't know anything about cloud. Should I start with AWS, Azure, or GCP? Which one would you suggest?
So right now, I would say like Azure and AWS are AWS is the market leader, and then there's Azure. But then there are like equal number of opportunities available to both to people who know like both technologies. And GCP also there are many people who use GCP, but not as much as AWS and Azure. So I would say if you know AWS or if you know Azure, it's a good start for you, because Azure is a little. I'm personally biased towards Azure because that's what I started with. Because I feel like it's easier to learn. Like there are probably like four technologies within Azure. I'm sorry, not technologies, but four services that
Services.
Azure, yeah, four services that Azure offers that you would have to learn, and you're good to start. You're good to go. But AWS has a lot of variety, so which it might be a little confusing. However, it's easy due to the variety and the different applications that are possible with AWS. I would say that even if you start with AWS, you have like an edge over other applicants. So I would say like start with the AWS or Azure. Either is good.
Okay, sounds good. And for to become a data scientist, if you already have Python, SQL, and Tableau, as a data scientist, I've never like used Tableau much, but yeah, I use SQL and Python every single day. On top of it, obviously, you should know machine learning, just basic machine learning algorithms, how it works, and how you can implement it would be good enough. And or like cloud technology is not a mandatory skill that you should have for a data scientist role, but it's good to have if you know like how the pipeline is. You don't have to deploy your own machine learning models. Someone else will be doing it, which is basically a data engineer or a machine learning engineer. But still, if you know how it has been deployed and how you can tweak the entire pipeline, it will be beneficial for you. And so I would say just so to consolidate, to become a data engineer, learn a cloud technology. To become a data scientist, learn the machine learning algorithm. If you already know Python, SQL, and Tableau. Also one more question to you, Sanjana. So if you have all these skills, do you think statistics is a mandatory skill to become a data engineer? Should I what how much of math will be useful to become a data engineer?
Not as much as data science, I would say, because most of it is about how you use certain APIs or like certain, um, how most of it is related to how you can extract information from a source and then like put it in tables. So it doesn't require any computation as such. Not much. If you're dealing with functions that require like simple arithmetic calculations, then it wouldn't require much. Of course, if there is some degree of data manipulation required, then of course I would say math is definitely important. But it really depends on the use case, and it depends upon what the business needs are. So if the data scientist wants the data already pre-processed and wants like certain field to come in processed in a certain way into the storage, then obviously the data engineer would have to understand how to do it. But these days, I think you can just Google it, and it's not like you need to start with it or you need to have a basic understanding of it. You can Google it and you can figure it out on the go. So I would say not much, not as much as a data scientist. But what do you think, Hari?
Yeah, I agree with you. And yeah, I want to add one more question on the same section. So we've talked about the technical skills required to become a data engineer and data scientist. But in the data field, like people say that you should also know the business to become a data scientist, data analyst. I'm not sure about the data engineer, so that's the question. So, like, as a data engineer, do you have to be business savvy, or should you understand what's happening in the business?
Yes, obviously, because so when I started off, maybe as when you're starting off, or if you're an early career professional and you're doing data engineering for the first time, the expectation is that you know the basics of data cleaning, data processing, and if you just know how to deal with the software, you're good to go. However, as you grow in your role, and as you start to develop that understanding of what the business actually needs, the way you design the model, the way you design that entire data pipeline or data architecture would vary, right? Like some amount of business knowledge would obviously help you design a better solution for the business. So yeah, it's definitely important as you grow in the role. But when you're a beginner, I don't think it's really important.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but that wasn't the case for a data scientist role. For a data scientist role, I feel that you should be 50% technical and 50% like you should know the business. because like even what we have studied in school or in all YouTube videos, we can see that basically like we've learned machine learning algorithms, math behind it, etc. But what I've understood after working as a data scientist is that sometimes you don't need complicated math or math equations or algorithms to solve a problem. Sometimes you can solve the problem easily just by knowing what business needs and what expectations they have in from the machine learning models that we have built. So having a business understanding would definitely help to save your time and also build some machine learning models easily, because most of your work will be spent on feature engineering. And yeah, let's go to the third factor: project and real world applications. So I'm gonna categorize this section into two questions. So one is let's say I'm a data analyst, or I have the skills that I mentioned initially for a data analyst role like Python, SQL, and now I want to become a data engineer. What kind of projects that I should do today? This is the first question. And the second question is, let's say it worked out, I cleared an interview and became a data engineer. What kind of real applications that I'll see if I become a data engineer? Like what kind of companies use what kind of applications? If you can give me an overview of these two things, it'll be great.
I would say that, so personally, I don't think you should segregate that data. If you're somebody who's starting off in the field, then if you don't want to focus on data engineering roles, or if you don't want to specifically focus on data science roles, and if you want to have like a mixture of both in your resume, then I feel like when you're starting off, you should probably, so data science, you can do, like, once you receive the data, you will be able to like do that entire project and build that machine learning model or whatever, right? But this data that you use for your specific use case is mostly through from one of the Kaggle data sets, or like, or it could be something that somebody has already procured. So if you're in this specific scenario, I would say gather the data from scratch, like run a script behind the scenes, call a certain API, store them in like containers, and then use data from these containers for that data science application. So you can show like the end to end data flow of how you procured it from an API, how the storage was done, and how you're using the storage to build another layer on top of it, and like build a machine learning model or whatever. So I would say, like, if you are using Kaggle data sets, you should probably like mimic it, or create a dummy data source, and then like pull data from it in order to show that end to end flow. So that is I think one of the projects that one could do in order to showcase their data engineering as well as data science prowess. Another thing is, so this probably would, so putting it in storage and then using it, this would probably show the API savviness that you have. But however, if you want to show the so data modeling side of it, so maybe like pull in the data and like store it in different tables, and then like give a unique key for it, and try to pull it from different tables. So within this entire interface only, you'll be able to integrate whatever data engineering use case that you picked up. Within that only, you'll be able to integrate that thing of, I can convert this into a data model and use it in an efficient manner. Or like this particular data set has like so and so mapping. So by pulling it here and making sure that it's a batch process or stream process, I'm able to store the data in this particular location, and then use it for my next application. So
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, even I like the idea, your first idea of doing a project which by basically doing both a data engineer's work and a data scientist's work in the same project, so that you can add a single project on your resume, and you can, based on the type of interview that you have, if you are in a data scientist interview, you can talk about the machine learning model that you built, and if you are a data engineering interview, you can speak about the data gathering part that you have mentioned. Yeah, that is like a one simple project to solve both the problems. That's really great. And to consolidate, the second point is basically to work on stream processing, data modeling, etc. Right? Those kind of projects using a cloud platform, I assume. Okay.
Yeah, you could use a cloud platform, or you could even use like open source tools like Airflow or PostgreSQL or MySQL. So you can use open source tools available to in order to showcase that prowess, but and also use it to deploy it onto a cloud platform, and then like you can also show that you also have some cloud experience, deployment experience. So that also would help.
Yeah, that's cool. And also, yeah, like in a data scientist project, we have spoken about data science projects a lot on this channel. But in a nutshell, basically don't do any cliche projects in data science, like a price prediction or Titanic classification, etc. Just do a project which is like personally, if you want to solve a problem, do a project like on that particular domain. I think the Sanjana's advice on data gathering could really help, because if you're doing a non-cliche project, it is not straightforward to get the data from Kaggle, right? Sometimes you have to call some API from external side to get the data. Sometimes you have to gather the data yourself. So I think doing this project could help. Doing a non-cliche project could help you be prepared for both data engineering and data science roles. And and another question on the same in the same section. So basically, what kind of applications are there for a data engineer? Like, let's say, what kind of companies use data engineering for what purpose, and what are the applications? What are the domains?
So I think when in early 2019 or 2018, the term data scientist became like a trending role, right? And during that period, a lot of companies started to hire a lot of data scientists, like for whatever application work, for whichever sector there is always a data science application, right? So similar to that, when they started like hiring a lot of data scientists, and they had like a bunch of data scientists who were ready to build the model. Not everybody had data available for building that particular model that they had to, right? So that's when I think in recent times companies have started to realize that it's not just about the end application or the end goal of building that machine learning, that fancy machine learning model. Data engineering is also a thing where you need like proper clean data to work with in order to ensure that your business application gets to wherever the vision is, right? So I think there's no specific uh, domain as such where data engineering wouldn't be relevant. Every company would find it relevant in some way or the other. If there's a data scientist in the company, there's obviously a data engineer who has to be there in order to give the data to that data scientist.
Yeah, sometimes
So
the data might not be consumed just by data analysts and data scientists, right? Sometimes it can be consumed by anyone.
consumed
It
by
can be
other.
consumed by a finance guy or some other team. So a data engineering team is a mandatory team that should be present in every company, right?
Right. Yeah. So actually, that was my second point, where it's
Mhm.
not just about the data scientist; it's also about whether a certain business application is getting the data it requires, or like uh, some companies, what they do is they have this warehouse where they store the data, the source system data that they're getting in, so that in the future they could use that data for some other application. But right now they're not using it for any. So just to build that data warehouse, also a data engineer is very important, because whoever is consuming the data later on would want like some record of the data that they received like in the past. And if there are many consumers in the on the other end, it's important that there's a data warehouse where all the data, or a data warehouse or a data lake where all that data is going in. These days I feel like every company has a data engineer and a data scientist, and even if there is no data scientist, there is definitely a data engineer. So it's relevant to all sectors.
Yeah, I agree. So in simple terms, basically, I would say a data scientist is more of like an R&D department where they work on like machine learning models, which is not a mandatory thing for the company, but it is like a good to have team or good to have like a title. But a data engineer is someone who provides the foundation or the fundamentals of the things which is required for a data scientist and also for the entire company. So I would say a data engineer is a mandatory title or a mandatory job role for a company, but a data scientist is a good to have sort of job role for a company. And
It's a data scientist is a luxury, a data engineer is a necessity
yeah, that's a
for
way of
companies
saying
these
it.
days. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And point number four, salary range. I mean, it is obvious that data scientists and data engineering is like equally competitive to get in and equally like the hottest title in this century. But what do you think? If I go to Glassdoor now, I know that I'm gonna see a similar salary range for these roles. But according to your experience, like what kind of numbers have you seen?
An entry level data engineer, I would say, gets paid as much as a data scientist. It really depends upon the company, the sector, the industry that you're applying to, and the role itself, the responsibilities within that role. Yeah, I would say for an entry level data scientist, is it 120 in 120K in the
Yeah,
United
it's
States?
yeah.
Yeah,
If you're in US, an average entry-level data scientist role is
it's
somewhere between
120.
$130,000. Yeah,
Correct. You're right. So maybe a little less, a little more, approximately the same range. That's what I've observed in the past year at least. But as you grow in the role, I guess it would vary depending upon your responsibilities. But that is where you start off.
and so the final question, and this is the question that a lot of people have, and this is the question that I had 2 years back. So the fifth factor, which is easier to transition into, to break into, if I have already in the data field, maybe an analyst, maybe a data analyst, maybe a business analyst. But we know that the pay of a data analyst is much lesser than a data scientist and data engineer role. And also, it's not as technical as a data engineer or data scientist. So eventually, every one of us wants to break into a data scientist or data engineer role. I can't say everyone, but yeah, most of us want to break into a data scientist or data engineer role. And the question here is, would you vouch for those people to break into a data engineer role, asking them to neglect there is a data science role?
So would you choose data engineering over data science? That's what your question is to me, correct?
Not would you choose? That's the next question I'm going to ask. But
Okay.
what kind of things would you tell the data analyst so that you can convince them to get into a data engineer role?
A person who finds it easier to talk to the code rather than having to talk about the business knowledge should definitely become a data engineer, I would say, because it's really about preferences. So
Yeah,
I say
also there's a thing, right? A person who was working as a data analyst, so they became a data analyst because they like working with charts, like preparing charts. It's colorful role for a data analyst, right? But data engineer is not going to see colors at all. I mean, to
no,
sell it in
yeah,
a
that's what I said. So if
Mhm.
a person likes to do the visual, data analytics is more business facing, right? So the way they explain the data to the business is you require a lot of soft skills. You require a lot of business knowledge and all that good stuff. All of that is business facing is data analytics. But when it comes to data engineering, your day to day activity will mostly be centered around how much data is coming in, where the data is going, is your pipeline running fine? What you built in the past, is it running fine? What do you have to build in the future, and how efficient can it be? So your entire role would revolve around basically building and deploying pipelines. So
that's why your role is a software engineer.
true. So yeah, it's more like software engineering, but if you're just like working with data, it becomes like data engineering. I honestly till now I haven't dealt with any charts or graphs or anything in my role. I'm not sure. Like from what I know, I'm pretty sure that other data engineers also have never done that visualization stuff. So if you think you'd miss that, or you'd prefer to get insights from the data you're actually getting into the system, then I think you should stick with data analytics. But if you really don't care about what insights the data contains, and you only care about whether the data is coming in or not, then that is all about that is what a data engineer would do. So if that's the kind of stuff that you're into, then you should definitely.
Yeah, that's why you should become a data scientist because you can still get to work with charts and also you can still code by becoming a data scientist. But yeah, the downside I would say is if you are a people person and if you like to uh, present your findings to like report your findings, a data scientist most probably they're not going to do that. They are still going to analyze the data. They are still going to understand the data, but they do that so that they can build the machine learning models from the understanding that they got. They most probably they're not going to present the understanding that they get from the data. So if you still like the storytelling part, stick to a data analyst role. If you like the machine learning part, if you like to still work with colorful data and still code, you can choose a data scientist role. Or if you out and out, if you just like working with code, basically people say right, like data scientists, data analysts are people who talk to data. I personally feel that's not right. In that case, they don't prepare charts, right? Data scientists can't talk to data, they prepare charts and talk to the charts. They don't talk to the data. But I think the real statement here is that data engineers are the people who like to talk to the data, and yeah, you can choose accordingly. Also, like before ending this, I have two questions. So the first question is, you mentioned that you worked as a data software engineer, right? And we know there are a lot other titles which are similar to a data engineer, software engineer. I would like to know the other titles which are similar to that. And also, that's the first question. And second question is, if you can go back in time where you just know Python and SQL, and you have to choose something between data engineering or data scientist, which one would you choose?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so to answer your first question, which is the title, right? Like a data scientist, it's not data engineering doesn't have like a specific title as such. So you can find a variety of titles. So some of them are called data engineers who build pipelines are actually called data engineers. Sometimes within the company, those people are called, sometimes people who do data quality assessment are called data engineers, but people who build the pipelines are called software engineers, like in my case. And then there's also big data engineer, data and integration engineer. Uh,
Machine learning engineer.
yeah, machine learning engineer. Sometimes even machine learning engineer goes interchangeably with data engineering and software engineering. So
Yeah,
these
sometimes
days,
sometimes MLOps developer as well,
eh,
right? Yeah.
yes, yes,
And
MLOps develop. It really depends upon what pipelines you're taking care of. I mean, if it's more about deploying and working with CI/CD applications, then you have like a different title altogether. But if it's about cloud services and just about the data, then of course your title is different. So it's really about the company and the role. But yeah, those were some of the roles that
but the skills are
I heard of.
interchangeable.
Yeah,
For the
yeah.
roles. If you can go back in time, and you should answer in a like a non-political, non-diplomatic way. And so if you can go back in time, let's say you're a data analyst or you have the skills for a data analyst role, and now you get a choice to work in a big company, either as a data scientist or data engineer, given that it's the same pay, which one would you choose?
Right. So, honestly, when I started off, the data engineering role wasn't really popular. I really got into it because I saw that, some of the things that I did in the past were very similar and I thought I'd be able to handle it. So that's why I got into data engineering and it was not really like a conscious choice. But then given the opportunity or, looking back on what I've done with the role, um, I know that, like now correct me if I'm wrong, Hari, but I know that there's like, there's a lot that goes into the data engineering role itself is really demanding, not because of how much you code or how much is expected of you, just because the number of things that you do in the past, like let's say you build a lot of pipelines, you're expected to like maintain them, or if you're expected to maintain them, then you should actually you can't you'll have to like retain all of that knowledge, all of that information, and it's like really really demanding. So in terms of balance, or like like work life balance type, you on a daily basis you'll have like so many small activities from the past and from the present that you'll have to take care of, and in terms of work, in terms of balance, there's not really much balance and it's very demanding basically. So having said that, if it was just about me choosing peace over having to work too much, I would say I would definitely choose data science. But since I joined in an entry level position, I know that the amount of learning I got from this role, in terms of the amount of knowledge I got from working with different teams and understanding each requirement from different teams, it really sharpened my skill set, and I was able to learn a lot and deal with many things in a short span of time. So I feel like since I started off in an entry level position, I was able to do all of that in a very short span of time. And if I were to go back and do it again, I would definitely choose data engineering.
So you would become a data engineer.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
longest answer. Okay.
yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, if you ask me like if I have to choose between data engineering and data scientist, I would become a data scientist again because data scientist got the
You did
hottest
not
job of
go there.
21st century, and data engineering never got that title. And
No, you
uh,
should you should Google it now. Now it's for data engineering. Data engineering is the hottest job
yeah,
of the
they're
century.
giving second prize for that, right? People are like data engineering is the new hottest job after data scientist, right? So they never got the first title. Anyway, I'm just kidding, but I would choose data scientist again because I like to work with the data. Like to analyze the data, to see what's happening and how a data can be converted into business insights rather than just working on like transferring the data, gathering the data. Even that sounds interesting, but personally, I feel transferring data into business insights is what I would choose. And also, you still get to do the things that you already learned from your days when you started learning data, right? Like creating charts, basically, and also like machine learning is the new hype, right? That is going around. I think so. Yeah, that's why I would choose data scientist. But
Yeah,
considering the new title which is coming up, Gen AI and AI developer or AI
I think
scientist.
everything is gonna come together into
Yeah,
one role called full stack data scientist, full stack data kind of a role. So it would include data engineering, data science, machine learning, and all that there is associated to data.
yeah,
So
that's true.
we're heading towards that.
Yeah, that's true. Even an AI engineer is more of a data engineer rather than a data scientist because the model LLM and other models are already there. So you don't need actually like a data scientist or someone to build it. But now the major problem is how you're going to deploy that model, which is a skill of a data engineer, right? So I feel
Right.
uh, just because of that, maybe data engineering is going to be the future, but not because of the title, because the title is going to be different when it's the future. As you said, they're going to merge both data scientists and data engineering together. So I would say just learn both machine learning and also learn the cloud technologies so you can always be the all rounder and be in the market and fight what's going to happen in the future. So thank you, Sanjana, for all your insights. So let's say if you're, I hope this video would have helped you to choose a career between data scientist versus data engineering. Let's say if you're confused between data scientist versus data analyst role, I've made a video, a similar podcast to help you to choose a career between data scientist versus data analyst. You can check out the video here. And thanks for watching this video and see you in the next one. Bye.